The wind howled across the barren wasteland of Outpost K-47, carrying with it the scent of scorched metal and death. The sky above was a vast, unending stretch of darkness, broken only by the occasional flicker of distant artillery fire. The battlefield had long since stopped being a place of honor or strategy. Now, it was just a graveyard waiting for its next occupants. Sergeant Elise Carter stood motionless on the elevated ridge, her rifle resting across her back, eyes sharp beneath the darkened visor of her helmet. Her fingers twitched against the stock, her breath steady despite the frigid air that clawed at her exposed skin. Below her, the so-called elite of the Galactic Expeditionary Forces, the same men who had spent the last 3 days treating her as an inconvenience, stood around their command table, laughing. "You still lugging that antique around, Carter?" One of them, Lieutenant Havreck, snorted as he nudged her sniper rifle with his boot. "I've seen museum pieces with more firepower." Elise said nothing, her expression unreadable. She had no patience for pointless arguments, least of all with men who wouldn't last 5 minutes without their AI-assisted targeting systems and energy shields. Another soldier, Corporal Luthen, smirked. "Tell me, do you crank that thing to reload, or do you just pray it doesn't jam mid-shot?" The laughter rippled through the group, but Elise remained still, her patience like tempered steel. She had spent years perfecting that skill, learning when to strike, when to hold, and when silence was the deadliest weapon of all. A heavier presence approached. Captain Virex. His golden armor, adorned with the insignia of the Galactic Expeditionary Forces, gleamed under the harsh artificial light. His face, a permanent mask of superiority, twisted with disdain as he stopped before her. "I don't know how your kind fights wars, but out here, we rely on advanced warfare." "Not relics," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "A human sniper? I suppose Command felt sorry for you. Or maybe they wanted a mascot." Elise's grip on her rifle tightened. It wasn't the first time she had heard such words, and it wouldn't be the last. She lifted her gaze, meeting his without hesitation. "You rely too much on technology, Captain." The laughter died down, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Virex narrowed his eyes. "And what exactly does that mean?" She shifted her rifle with ease, her voice calm. "It means when the batteries die, when the comms fail, and when your shields flicker out under a real fight, the only thing that will matter is who pulls the trigger first. And I don't need an AI to do that." Havreck scoffed. Big words for someone who's never seen real combat. "If you had, you'd know that brute force wins wars, not patience." Elise didn't respond. There was no need. She had seen more battlefields than these soldiers ever would. She had spent weeks in the frozen hellscape of Velmar 9, lying motionless in the snow, waiting for a single perfect shot. She had watched comrades die because they had put their faith in technology instead of instinct. And she had learned, time and time again, that arrogance was the quickest path to the grave. A chime echoed through the command center. The mission briefing had begun. A holographic display flickered to life, projecting the towering figure of their target, General A.R. Vex, a high-ranking Zyrek officer responsible for the destruction of 3 human colonies. His scaled face, devoid of emotion, was imprinted in Elise's mind long before the briefing began. "Our intel has confirmed his location within the ruins of Sector Delta," the mission operator announced. "Standard assault strategy applies: direct engagement, secure the area, and eliminate the target." Elise frowned. "Direct engagement?" Virex sighed dramatically. "Yes, Carter. That's what real soldiers do." Her mind raced. A direct assault was reckless. The Zyrek were too smart to be caught by brute force, and this battlefield was riddled with places to set traps. "This is a mistake," she said evenly. Virex smirked. "And let me guess, you think hiding behind a rock for 6 hours is a better idea?" "It's better than walking into an ambush," she shot back. Virex shook his head and turned away. "Just stay out of the way. We'll handle this." The briefing ended. The soldiers geared up, their energy rifles humming to life as they checked their shields and combat exoskeletons. Elise, in contrast, adjusted the strap of her sniper rifle, slinging it over her shoulder like an extension of herself. No glowing visors, no targeting assists, just instinct, precision, and patience. The team moved out under the cover of the dust-choked sky. Elise walked a few paces behind, listening to their overconfident chatter through her earpiece. They spoke as if the mission was already won, as if they had never known failure. She had seen this before. Men who believed themselves invincible right up until the moment they weren't. As they neared the ruins, Elise broke formation, scaling the side of a crumbling structure to take position. Below, Virex and his squad advanced, their glowing armor making them painfully visible against the shadows. Her earpiece crackled. "Do you have visual on the target?" Elise peered through her scope, scanning the area. Then she saw it. The faint shimmer in the air, the telltale sign of a Zyrex stealth field. Her gut twisted. "Hold position," she said sharply. "There's an ambush." But Virex wasn't listening. Energy fire erupted from the ruins. The Zyrex soldiers materialized from the shadows, weapons primed, their ambush flawlessly executed. The Galactic soldiers barely had time to react. Their shields flared against the barrage, but the Zyrex weren't aiming for center mass. They were targeting joints, exposed sections, helmet optics. The precision was surgical. Within seconds, 2 soldiers were down, their bodies crumpling against the dust. Elise exhaled slowly, aligning her sights. She found a Zyrex warrior crouched behind cover, preparing to fire on the retreating soldiers. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The shot rang out, a single crack against the chaos. The Zyrex collapsed, a neat hole between its eyes. Another soldier lined up his sights on Havrek. Elise fired again. Another body fell. But it wasn't enough. The Galactic soldiers were in full retreat, scrambling for cover, and Virex, who had so confidently dismissed her moments ago, was now shouting for backup. Elise adjusted her position, shifting between the ruined pillars. Another shot. Another body fell. And still, no one acknowledged her. The soldiers regrouped behind a shattered wall, panting, their golden armor smeared with dirt and blood. Virex slammed his fist against the rubble. "Where the hell did they come from?" he spat. Elise landed lightly beside him, rifle resting at her side. "I told you there was an ambush." His glare could have cut steel. "I don't need a goddamn sniper giving me orders." Elise met his gaze, unwavering. "You need one to keep you alive." Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken truths. The arrogance had cracked, just slightly, but not enough. Not yet. She turned away, reloading her rifle with practiced ease. The mission wasn't over. The Zyrex were still out there. And Elise knew, this was just the beginning. The night was thick with dust and silence, broken only by the distant echoes of battle long since ended. Elise crouched atop the crumbling remains of a pre-war structure, her rifle steady against the ledge. The Galactic soldiers were licking their wounds below, their arrogance reduced to muttered curses and tense glares. None of them looked at her. None of them thanked her. But she had expected that. Her visor adjusted to the darkness, enhancing the faint outlines of movement in the distance. The Zyrex hadn't retreated far. They were patient hunters, methodical in their kill. Unlike the soldiers at her back, they didn't rely on bravado to win wars. They let the battlefield speak for them, and tonight it had whispered a warning. The Galactic soldiers weren't untouchable. They were prey. Elise exhaled slowly, her heartbeat sinking with the stillness around her. She should have left them to their failure. Let them stumble into the next ambush and be done with it. But something kept her here. Not duty. Not loyalty. Something else. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A lone Zyrex scout crept along the ruins, silent as the grave. Elise didn't hesitate. She adjusted her aim, her body relaxed, her grip firm. A heartbeat passed. Then another. She pulled the trigger. The crack of the rifle was almost gentle against the silence. The scout dropped without a sound. She shifted position before the body hit the ground. The Zyrex weren't fools. They would notice soon enough. She needed to move. Below, Captain Virex barked orders, his voice sharp with frustration. The soldiers were regrouping, scanning the battlefield as if expecting an immediate counterattack. They didn't realize yet. They thought the Zyrek would fight the way they did, loud, aggressive, direct. But the Zyrek were already adapting. They wouldn't throw themselves into another open assault. They would wait, study, strike when it hurt the most. Elise slung her rifle across her back and slipped away from the ledge. She had no interest in whatever strategy Virex was devising. He would make the same mistakes, lead his men into the same slaughter, and blame everyone but himself. She had no reason to follow him into death. The city ruins stretched before her, a labyrinth of shattered steel and collapsed towers. Shadows pooled in the broken streets, deep and full of unseen dangers. She moved through them like a ghost, her steps soundless, her presence unnoticed. Every instinct told her to stop, to turn back, but she didn't. She had something else to do. The Zyrek general was out there. He had orchestrated the ambush, watched as his soldiers shredded the so-called elite forces. He was the mind behind the slaughter. And Elise intended to put a bullet through it. She found a vantage point on the remains of an old communications tower, its skeletal frame barely holding together. The climb was slow, deliberate. She tested every foothold, every rusted beam, until she reached the top. From here, she had a clear view of the battlefield. The Galactic soldiers were moving, forming tight patrols, their arrogance now replaced by a wary tension. She ignored them. Beyond their position, nestled in the ruins of an old war bunker, was the Zyrek encampment. Faint blue lights flickered within, movement shifting in and out of sight. They were still here. She adjusted her scope, scanning the figures inside. Soldiers, engineers, scouts, and then, there. A taller figure, clad in heavier armor, his posture commanding, his every movement calculated. General A.R. Vex. Her grip on the rifle tightened. She steadied her breathing, slowed her pulse. It was a difficult shot, long range, wind resistance, potential shielding. But not impossible. She had killed at this distance before. She just needed the right moment. A Zyrek soldier moved in front of the general. Elise adjusted, waiting for a clear line of sight. Patience. That was the difference between a sniper and a soldier. A soldier reacted. A sniper dictated the outcome before the battle even began. Then the earpiece in her helmet crackled. Elise, a voice hissed. Luthen. Where the hell are you? She ignored him, her focus unwavering. We need cover fire. The Zyrek are circling back. If you can hear this, get back to position and... She switched off the channel. She didn't have time for their desperation. The wind shifted. Vex turned, speaking to one of his officers. He was exposed now, the angle perfect. Elise aligned her sights. A single shot, and this battle would end before it truly began. She exhaled. And then the Galactic soldiers stormed the encampment. Explosions erupted in the ruins, lighting the night with fire and chaos. Elise's stomach twisted as she watched them move, careless, loud, predictable. They hadn't even realized they were the ones walking into another trap. The Zyrek countered immediately. Sniper fire from unseen positions tore through the first wave. Soldiers fell, their golden armor flashing before being swallowed by the dirt. The ambush was brutal, surgical. Elise cursed under her breath. They had ruined everything. She scanned the chaos below. Airvex was already moving, his guards shielding him as he retreated into the deeper ruins. Her shot was gone. And now the Galactic soldiers were dying because they had, once again, underestimated their enemy. She could leave them. Let them drown in their own arrogance. It would be easier, smarter. And yet, she was already moving. She descended the tower with practiced efficiency, landing in the rubble below. Her rifle was steady in her hands, her mind sharp. The battlefield was shifting, and she had no intention of being caught in the wrong place. A soldier stumbled into view, clutching his side, his armor scorched from a direct hit. Havrek. He saw her, his expression a mix of shock and desperation. Carter. A shot rang out. Elise dove forward, tackling him to the ground as the impact slammed into the wall behind them. She rolled off him, her rifle already aimed. The Zyrex sniper was repositioning, adjusting for the next shot. Elise fired first. The enemy's body dropped from the ruined balcony above, lifeless before it hit the ground. Havrek gasped for breath, his eyes wide. "You!" She was already moving again. Vyrex's voice crackled over an open channel, laced with panic. "Fall back. Fall back now." Elise sprinted through the wreckage, each step measured, every movement precise. The Zyrek were relentless, their forces pressing forward with cold efficiency. The Galactic soldiers were breaking, their formations collapsing. The battlefield was theirs now. Unless Elise changed that. She found a high position on the remnants of an old transport ship, her rifle braced against the rusted hull. The Zyrek were advancing, methodical, unstoppable. Elise inhaled, and then she began to shoot. Each pull of the trigger was a death sentence. Zyrek officers fell before they could issue commands. Gunners collapsed before they could lock onto their targets. She didn't fire wildly. She chose her shots with purpose, dismantling their strategy before they could execute it. The Galactic soldiers, scrambling to retreat, hesitated. They saw what was happening. The enemy's advance slowed, the once coordinated attack unraveling under precise, calculated fire. She heard her name through the comms. She ignored it. She fired again. And the battlefield shifted. The Zyrek, now aware of the single unseen force cutting through their ranks, changed tactics. They didn't retreat. They adapted. A shadow moved in her peripheral vision. Too fast. Too close. Elise turned, just in time to see the Zyrek warrior lunging toward her, blade gleaming. And then everything went dark. Pain lanced through Elise's skull as she came to, her mind sluggish, her body uncooperative. The world around her was dark, the scent of damp stone and charred metal filling her lungs. Instinct kicked in before thought. She tensed, listening, waiting. No voices. No footsteps. Just the steady hum of distant power cores and the occasional crackle of burning wreckage. She was alive. That was either a mistake or a challenge. Blinking against the haze clouding her vision, she tried to move. Her hands were bound, metal restraints digging into her wrists. Cold stone pressed against her back, the air around her thick with a metallic tang of blood. Some of it was hers. Some of it wasn't. Memories flooded back in sharp, chaotic fragments. The ambush. The firefight. The sniper nest. The shadow that had moved too fast. Her pulse quickened. Captured. Elise shifted slightly, testing the restraints. Strong, reinforced, but not unbreakable. She focused on the sounds around her. The room was large, cavernous. Machinery hummed somewhere beyond her line of sight. The Zyrek didn't believe in traditional prisons. They built fortresses, holding pens, places where the concept of hope was something that existed only for the captors. She wasn't alone. A presence loomed nearby, heavy and deliberate. A slow, methodical movement. Whoever it was, they wanted her to know they were watching. Footsteps approached, the rhythmic clank of armored boots against stone echoing in the chamber. Elise kept her breathing even, her expression carefully neutral as she lifted her gaze. General Arvex stood before her. His presence was suffocating, his scaled form towering, his dark eyes unreadable. Zyrek armor wasn't just functional, it was a statement. His was blackened steel, sharp edges carved with the intricate markings of his rank. A warlord. A tactician. A killer. Elise said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was a weapon. Arvex studied her for a long moment before speaking. His voice was deep, measured. "You are not like the others." She tilted her head slightly, feigning curiosity. "Let me guess. Smaller, weaker, unimpressive technology." The Zyrek's mouth curled slightly, not quite a smirk, but something close. "No. Smarter." Elise resisted the urge to react. That wasn't what she had expected. Arvex gestured slightly, and another Zyrek stepped forward, dropping something at her feet. Her sniper rifle. Her stomach twisted, but she didn't let it show. This weapon, ARVX continued, has claimed more of my warriors than any single soldier in your so-called elite force. His gaze sharpened. I underestimated you. They all did. Elise remained still. If he was trying to flatter her, he was wasting his breath. But I have studied your kind, he went on. I know what drives you. I know that human soldiers fight with the arrogance of belief, that they will always be the superior force. He leaned slightly closer, his voice quieter now. You are different. A test. A trap. She refused to step into it. So what now? She asked evenly. Interrogation? Torture? Or do you skip straight to execution? ARVX exhaled sharply. Amusement, maybe. You assume I need information. I do not. Your captain is predictable. He will lead his remaining forces into another foolish assault before the next cycle. They will die. You already know this. She did. Her silence must have given her away, because ARVX's expression shifted, just slightly. You are a weapon, he said. One your leaders do not appreciate. But I do. Elise narrowed her eyes. I have no interest in broken soldiers or desperate men clinging to fading superiority, he continued. I am interested in hunters. There it was. The real game. You want me to work for you, she said flatly. ARVX tilted his head. I want you to understand what side you should be on. Elise let out a quiet breath, her mind working through the implications. This wasn't just about recruitment. This was about breaking her, making her doubt. It wasn't the first time she had been offered survival in exchange for loyalty. It wouldn't be the last. She lifted her chin slightly. If you think I'll betray my people, you don't know me as well as you think. ARVX regarded her for a moment before nodding toward one of the guards. The Zyrek warrior stepped forward, tapping at a wrist console. A holographic display flickered to life, a live feed. Elise's stomach turned to ice. The Galactic soldiers were regrouping outside the ruins, exactly as ARVX predicted. She could see Virex barking orders, see the remaining troops scrambling to reinforce their position. They thought they were planning an attack. They didn't realize they were already dead. The Zyrek forces were already in motion, flanking unseen through the wreckage. Elise's sniper position had been compromised. Without her, they had no eyes, no warnings. And then she saw something else. Havrek. Luthen. Others she hadn't even bothered to learn the names of. Wounded, but alive. Staring into the ruins, waiting for orders, waiting for leadership that wouldn't save them. ARVX watched her carefully. You cannot stop what is coming, but you can choose what comes next. Elise's jaw clenched. She knew war. She knew death. She had seen arrogant fools fall by the thousands. But this wasn't just another battle. This was slaughter. She met ARVX's gaze, unflinching. I already have. Before he could react, she moved. The restraints around her wrists weren't unbreakable. She had felt the tension, tested the weakness. Now, she tore them apart. The shock in ARVX's expression lasted only a second before she drove her fist into his throat, using the moment of impact to propel herself backward. The guards lunged. Elise was faster. She grabbed the nearest one, twisting his weapon from his grasp and slamming the barrel into his jaw. The second guard reached for his blade. She was already moving, ducking low, twisting under his strike. ARVX had recovered, his stance shifting, his gaze no longer amused. Good. Elise grabbed her rifle from the ground, rolling into position as she brought it up. The guards hesitated for half a second too long. She didn't. A single shot. The first guard fell. The second lunged again. She sidestepped, striking the butt of her rifle into his skull. He collapsed. ARVX was already stepping forward, his expression unreadable. You fight well, he said, almost approving. Elise wiped the blood from her cheek, lifting her rifle. You talk too much. Then she pulled the trigger. But ARVX was ready. He shifted at the last second, the bullet grazing his armor. He moved fast, faster than any Zyrek she had fought before. Expected. She didn't wait for him to counter. She threw herself backward, firing a second shot mid-movement. The blast struck the power console behind him. Sparks erupted, the lights flickering. That was all she needed. Elise turned and ran. Gunfire followed, but she was already ahead, weaving through the corridors, her mind calculating every exit, every vantage point. She had no intention of dying here. Not today. She reached the edge of the compound, slamming her hand against a control panel. The outer doors hissed open, revealing the ruins beyond. The battlefield awaited. She didn't stop. She sprinted toward the Galactic soldier's last position, her rifle strapped tight, her breath steady. The ambush was already in motion. They didn't know. But they would. Because this time she wouldn't be watching from a distance. This time, she was hunting. The ruins stretched before her, shrouded in smoke and death. Elise moved like a shadow through the wreckage, her body aching but her focus razor-sharp. The Zyrek attack had already begun, their forces creeping through the debris, circling the Galactic soldiers like wolves around wounded prey. They thought this would be another easy slaughter. They were wrong. She adjusted her rifle, her movements automatic. Each breath measured. Each step deliberate. The battle was unfolding exactly as Arvex had planned, but he had made a fatal miscalculation. He had left her alive. She scanned the ruins from a concealed position, the scope of her rifle cutting through the haze of dust and fire. Virex was still standing, barking orders, his soldiers scrambling into defensive positions. They had no idea what was coming for them. They were blind, weak, exposed. Not for long. A Zyrek sniper perched atop a crumbling tower, lining up a shot. Elise exhaled and pulled the trigger first. The alien's body crumpled, falling into the abyss below. That was the signal. She fired again. Another sniper down. Then another. The Zyrek advance faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. This wasn't supposed to happen. Their prey wasn't supposed to fight back with precision, with intent. Elise made sure they understood their mistake. She shifted position, picking off officers and scouts, disrupting their formation before they could regroup. They didn't know where she was. They couldn't see her. But she saw everything. A patrol rushed toward the Galactic soldiers' last defensive line. Elise took out the lead warrior with a single shot to the throat. The others hesitated. She fired again. Blood painted the ruins. The surviving Galactic soldiers saw it now. Saw her. Luthen's voice crackled through the comms. Carter. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The remaining forces began fighting back with renewed desperation. They still weren't good enough. Still clumsy, still unworthy of the title they carried. But now, at least, they had a chance. Elise kept moving, her rifle an extension of her will, her mind a step ahead of the battlefield. She wasn't just another soldier anymore. She wasn't waiting. She wasn't watching. She was hunting. The Zyrek knew it too. A roar echoed across the ruins, deep and resonant. Arvex. Elise didn't flinch. She had been waiting for this. He emerged from the smoke, his towering form illuminated by the fires of his failing ambush. His soldiers fell back, uncertain, glancing toward their leader for orders. He didn't give any. He was looking at her. Elise held her ground, her rifle steady, her heartbeat calm. Arvex took a slow step forward, his armor gleaming, his movements controlled. You are more than I thought. She tilted her head slightly. And you're just as predictable as I thought. A flicker of amusement crossed his features. You could have joined me. You still can. Her finger rested against the trigger. I already made my choice. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken truths. Arvex knew what was coming, knew what she was. He lunged. Elise moved. The first shot hit his shoulder, the impact staggering but not stopping him. He was faster than any Zyrek she had fought before. Stronger. Smarter. He closed the distance in a blink, his blade slicing through the air where she had stood moments before. She rolled, fired again. His armor absorbed the hit, but it slowed him. She adjusted, calculated, waited. Another step. Another mistake. She fired. The bullet tore through his knee joint. Arvex stumbled, his balance shifting. She didn't hesitate. She moved in close, using his own weight against him. A twist. A strike. A gun pressed beneath his chin. He bared his teeth, breathing heavily. Finish it. Elisa's grip tightened. She had spent her life eliminating threats, removing obstacles. This should be no different. And yet, she hesitated. Not out of mercy. Not out of doubt. Out of understanding. You already know it's over, she said quietly. Arvex exhaled slowly, his dark eyes unreadable. Perhaps. She pulled the trigger. His body slumped to the ground. The remaining Zyrek forces faltered, their leader gone, their strategy broken. The Galactic soldiers seized the moment, pressing the advantage. The tide had turned. The battle was won. Elise didn't stay to celebrate. She vanished into the ruins, her rifle slung across her back, her purpose shifting. She wasn't fighting for them. Not for Virex, not for the Galactic soldiers who had mocked her. She was fighting for herself. And they would all remember why.